Adams, Senator Alvarado, Senator Yates, Representative Bridges, Representative Frazier Gordon, Representative Marzian, Co-Chair West,
Here.
Co-Chair Hale.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Having a quorum today, this committee is duly constituted to do business at this time. Before we go to the first item of business, which is actually the approval of the minutes of the last meeting, I think one of our members today has a guest that he would like to introduce to everyone with us. So Representative Bridges, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm proud to say that I have one of my grandsons with me today, Nicholas Saladino. So if you give him a warm welcome, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome, Nicholas. We're glad to have you with us today in our committee meeting. Thank you for coming to be with us today. The first item of business today is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the last month's meeting? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
And there is a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. So at this time, please call the first regulation.
Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, 11 KAR 4080, 145, 11 KAR 15090, 16020, 22010, and 23010.
11 KAR 4080 is being amended to incorporate the latest version of the free application for federal student aid and add the Optometry Scholarship Program, Dual Credit Scholarship Program, and the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship Program and the associated applications. 5145 is being amended to increase the maximum expected family contribution level necessary to demonstrate financial need for eligibility for the CAP grant program and increase the overall annual maximum award amount based on whether a recipient is attending a 2-year or 4-year institution. 15090 is being amended to add a new SAT conversion table to document the newest concordance for examinations taken on or after July 2018, eliminate the provision pertaining to 5-year baccalaureate degree programs, and eliminate reference to both the optometry contract spaces program and the equivalent undergraduate programs list. 16020 is being amended to incorporate the electronic disbursement process the authority has developed and utilized for the past few academic years. 22010 establishes the procedures for making awards under the Dual Credit Scholarship Program, and 23010 establishes the procedures for administration of the Optometry Scholarship. The staff suggested amendments to these regulations amends various sections to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A, delete unnecessary language for consistency, add a definition for priority consideration, and make technical changes.
Good afternoon. Would you both please identify yourself and make sure your microphones have the green light on? Please go ahead, please.
There we go. Good afternoon. I'm Becky Gilpatrick, Director of Student Aid for KIA.
Good afternoon. I'm Miles Justice, Senior Associate Counsel for the Higher Education Assistance Authority.
So we welcome you both today to our meeting today. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments?
Motion.
There is a motion, and is there a second? Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions from any of the members today for our guests that are with us? It appears there are no questions, and we again thank you all for being with us today. Please call it the next regulation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Personnel Cabinet, 101 KAR 2 046, 095 Emergency, 095 Ordinary, 190, 101 KAR 6020 Emergency and Ordinary.
101-2046 is being amended to add language to allow an appointing authority to seek an exception to the 30-day education completion requirement for future graduates to assist agencies in recruiting new hires, make clarifications, and remove the section pertaining to the retention period for applicant submissions. 2095, an emergency, amends to remove provisions for the Kentucky Employees Charitable Campaign. 2190 is being amended to update and clarify procedures, including to allow an employee's variance from standard procedures with personnel cabinet approval, should facts arise to create such a need, especially due to various employee turnover related to scenarios or unknown variables, require agencies to monitor supervisor training requirements, in addition to monitoring conducted by the Personnel Cabinet, and provide for participation in the electronic performance management system by non-KRS Chapter 18 agencies. 6020, an emergency, establishes the procedures and requirements governing the Kentucky Employees Charitable Campaign.
Good afternoon. Would all three of you at this time please identify yourself for the record?
Rosemary Holbrook, I'm the Assistant General Counsel at the Personnel Cabinet.
Elena Myers, Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Human Resources Administration in the Personnel Cabinet.
Alan Hurst, Executive Director of the Office of Employee Relations in the Personnel Cabinet.
Thank you all very much. Again, we welcome you to our committee today. There are no amendments to this specific set of regulations. Are there any questions from any of the members at this time? There appearing to be no questions. Thank you all for your time today. Please call the next regulation.
Thank you.
Finance and Administration Cabinet, Kentucky Retirement Systems, 105 KAR 1390 with amendment.
This regulation amends to reflect recent legislative changes relating to the creation of the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority and the County Employees Retirement System Board. It adds procedures for multiple employers making health insurance premium reimbursements for the same retired reemployed member, and establishes forms and procedures for programs that exempt payment of employer contributions and reimbursement of health insurance premiums for retired members reemployed as police and school resource officers. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to clarify the factor used to determine employment status and to comply with drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A.
Good afternoon. Would you please both identify yourself today for the record?
Yes, my name is Carrie Bass. I'm a staff attorney supervisor with the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority.
My name is Jessica Bobian. I'm a policy specialist with the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority.
Again, thank you all this afternoon for being with us. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for the approval? Thank you. There has been a motion and there is a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions from the members of the subcommittee today? There appears to be no questions, so thank you all again for being with us. Please call the next regulation.
Thank you.
Boards and Commissions, Board of Pharmacy, 201 KAR 2020 with staff suggested amendment, 050, and 225 with staff suggested amendment.
201 KR 2020 amends to change examinations to pass or fail rather than a score of 75% to pass, limit retaking exams to 3 attempts without additional board approval and to 5 attempts in a lifetime, establish requirements for board approval to take the exam after 3 attempts, require all exam results to be preserved in accordance with the board's schedule, add requirements for an initial application for pharmacist licensure prior to taking exams, and incorporate an updated application and new certification forms. 201 KR 2050 amends to change language from application for a licensee for pharmacist examination to application for initial pharmacist license. 201 KR 2225 amends to update forms and make technical amendments. The staff amendments for 201 KR 2020 and 225 amend various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Good afternoon, sir. Would you please identify yourself today for the record?
Good afternoon. Chris Harlow, Executive Director, Board of Pharmacy.
There are staff amendments to these regulations. Is there a motion for approval? There has been a motion, and there has been a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered today. Are there any questions from any of the members? Senator Yates, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. Very simple question.
Sure.
Just looking at it, are we lowering the bar for the examinations to make it easier to comply?
So the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy set the standards and create the examination. So we're just changing the language to comply with their rules. So nothing has changed within the examination. We're just updating language to conform with theirs.
Okay, just for me reading, it says it was 75% to pass. Now it's just pass failed. So it doesn't really change. It doesn't make it easier to pass the exam?
That's correct. So 75 is the passing score.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Marzi, go ahead, please.
Not a question, but I just want to welcome Chris Harlow back again. He's testified several times, and he used to be my constituent, but not anymore. But welcome, and thank you.
I miss you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Marzian. Any other questions? Thank you, sir, for your time
Thank
here
you.
today. We appreciate that. Please call the next regulation.
Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors, 201 KAR 15030 Emergency and Ordinary, 040 Emergency and Ordinary, 050 Emergency and Ordinary, 110 Emergency and Ordinary, and 125 Emergency and Ordinary. There is one staff suggested amendment.
201-15-030, an emergency amends to relocate into one regulation funeral establishments, the practice of embalmers, funeral directors, and other related occupations, and increase fees for licensure and license renewals for funeral establishments, embalmer apprentices, funeral director apprentices, and surface transportation permits, and increase the fee for examinations and subsequent facility inspections. 15040, an emergency amends to allow for a board-authorized exam administered by the board, require applicants for funeral director or embalmer license to pass the Kentucky Laws exam, set exams at intervals predefined on a published calendar, make clarifications and technical changes. 15050, an emergency amends to remove fees that were consolidated in another regulation, make clarifications and technical changes. 15110, an emergency, and 15125, an emergency amends to remove fees that were consolidated in another regulation, make clarifications and technical changes. The staff suggested amendment to 201-15050 makes changes to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Would you please identify yourself today for the record?
I'm Kenitha Dorsey, the Executive Director of the Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors.
Is your light on there on your?
Yes.
Okay.
Shall
You
I
might
start?
pull that just a little bit closer to you if you don't mind. Could you please introduce yourself again?
Yes. Kenitha Dorsey, Executive Director of the Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors.
Thank you, Ms. Dorsey. We appreciate your time being with us today. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment? There has been a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered at this time. Are there any questions from any of the members of the subcommittee? There appears to be no questions, so thank you very much for being with us today. Appreciate your time. Please call the next regulation at this time.
Board of Nursing, 201 KAR 20070 and 240. We have agency amendments with these.
201 KR 20070 amends to permit two rather than one attempt to pass the NCLX exam with a provisional license, limit provisional license to 6 months, reference continuing education requirements listed in another regulation, and expand requirements for graduates of foreign programs of nursing to include passing an English proficiency exam under 201 KR 2480 before they are issued a provisional license. The agency amendment amends Section 6 to comply with Senate Bill 2 from the 2021 regular session. 201 KR 2240 amends to change the amount of time in which an application for licensure or reinstatement by endorsement lapses from 6 months to 1 year. The agency amendment amends various sections to comply with Senate Bill 10 from the 2022 regular session.
Good afternoon. Would you please identify yourself today for the record?
Good afternoon, Jeff Prather, General Counsel for the Board of Nursing.
Thank you, Mr. Prather. We're glad you are with us today. There are agency amendments to these regulations. Is there any discussion on the agency amendments? Is there a motion for approval of the agency amendments? There has been a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions on the regulation before us today from any of the members of the subcommittee? I think the only thing I would ask, and it would be similar to what Senator Yates asked in the first question a few moments ago, is there some reasoning for moving that from just one attempt or from two attempts, changing that the way it was?
Yeah, yes, thank you for the question. When we were reviewing Senate Bill 10, when it went through the last legislative session, we had concerns from the hospitals, KHA, regarding the one-time pass rate. The way it was written before, or the way the regulation was applied before, if a new nurse out of school had failed the NCLEX, their provisional license was over, and they could not practice as a nurse. Now, given that we had been through the pandemic, and the clinicals were no longer available because the nurses couldn't be there in person, we thought it best to at least give them one more chance because now they're in a hospital setting where they're able to have hands-on treatment of patients. And so we figured if we'd give them one more opportunity, and that seemed, hopefully that will help them to learn more so they can actually pass the NCLEX on a second attempt. However, the provisional license is specifically limited now to 6 months, so they have that time frame to accomplish passing the NCLEX.
Thank you very much. That sounds like a very good answer.
Well, thank you.
I like that. I like that.
I appreciate it.
Any other questions? There appears to be no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Prather, for
Thank
your time
you all.
today. Please call the next regulation at this time.
Kentucky Community and Technical College System Board of Emergency Medical Services, 202 KAR 7 545 and 560 emergency.
202 KR 7 545 amends to require agencies to apply for, rather than obtain a license from the board within 90 days of the issuance of a certificate of need, and require a final inspection for licensure to be requested within 180 days after applying for a license. 202 KR 7 560E amends to modify staffing requirements for ambulance services and separate changes prior to September 1, 2022 and on and after September 1, 2022. To delete the requirement to have an on-duty paramedic staffing at least 25% of the agency's staffed ambulances at any time during the 24-hour period. Change emergency medical technician to emergency medical responder for all classes of ground ambulances, and delete requirement for certified emergency medical responders who are drivers prior to January 1, 2018 to be employed by the same agency in order to continue to be drivers.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Please identify yourself for the record at this time.
Good afternoon. My name is Eddie Sloan. I'm the Interim Executive Director for the Kentucky Board of EMS.
Good afternoon. John Wood, outside counsel for the Kentucky Board of EMS.
Mr. Sloan, Mr. Wood, thank you today for your time being with us. There are no amendments on these regulations. Are there any questions from any of the members? The only question that I would have, and I guess it's really not a question, more maybe of a comment on 007-560 has been filed as an emergency reg. Is there? Could you explain why that is? Why it's been filed as an emergency?
So, sure. The emergency, as we came out of the emergency regulations, there were some new regulations that allowed for the EMR training program, and so in order to allow CPR certified drivers, this was that bridge so those classes could get up and rolling and get those students out and tested. So it was simply a bridge to get them to the, as the EMR was reinstituted.
So basically just to be able to get there quicker?
That's, well, maybe not quicker, but at least get it to the bridge that the new EMR program could get up and running. So it's just to bridge that gap that we could get some EMRs on the road.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today. Appreciate that. Please call the next regulation at this time.
Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet, Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, 301 KAR 1201, and with staff suggested amendments, 301 KAR 2 132, 172, and 221.
301-1201 amends traditional fish to standardize bass limits, delete special trout provisions for Poor Fork of the Cumberland River and Paintsville Lake tailwater, update catch and release provisions for Swift Camp Creek, establish special size and creel limits on channel and blue catfish at Carr Creek Lake, and establish a 40-inch size limit for muskie at all 4 reservoirs. 301-132 amends provisions for elk hunting to expand the hunt drawing application period, establish a redraw for long-term applicants, and allow military personnel to defer the use of permits for up to 2 years if geographically reassigned. 301-172 amends deer hunting provisions to add 2 definitions and establish requirements for chronic wasting disease surveillance. 301-221 amends provisions for hunting waterfowl to reorganize and consolidate provisions from related regulations, revise special youth waterfowl seasons, and add a special veterans or active duty waterfowl season. The staff suggested amendments for 301, 2, 132, 172, and 221, amend various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Good afternoon. Would all of you please at this time identify yourself for the record?
Stephen Fields, Staff Attorney.
Dave Dreves, Fisheries Division Director.
And Jenny Gilbert, Commissioner's Office.
Welcome to all three of you today. We're glad that Fish and Wildlife has joined us. When we have reg meetings and Fish and Wildlife is not here, we do not feel like we've had a complete meeting until Fish and Wildlife has joined us. So thank you all today for being with us this afternoon. There are staff amendments to these set of regulations. Is there a motion for approval? There is a motion, or has been a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions from the members of the subcommittee? There appears to be no questions, but we had a special call meeting in my office, and the members wanted to know why you was putting a 40-inch size limit on muskie in all four lakes. Mr. Fisheries Director, please answer that question.
Yes, sir, Representative Hale. The reason why we're doing that is that that muskie are our top predator. They're highly sought after sport fish, and there's a lot of states to the north of us that have 40-inch size limits or even greater, 45, 48-inch size limits. We established a 36-inch size limit about 2010 or so, monitored that. There appeared to be no detrimental effects to the fishery by increasing that size limit. We still have some constituents that highly favor this regulation to go even greater to the 40-inch, and so we think that the fisheries can handle that type of regulation without any detriment to the population, so we went ahead and with that proposed enactment.
Thank you, Mr. Director. I was actually joking about a special call meeting, but we were discussing the 40-inch size limit. Representative Bridges, he was trying to measure it out with his hands, and Representative Frazier Gordon, she said that she had already made her 1,000 casts and still had not been able to catch one, and so she was wondering how many more casts she was going to have to make. So I told her to go to Cave Run Lake. That's the cream of the crop lake, I think.
That is the cream of the crop.
Thank you all very much for being with us today. Appreciate your time. Being no further questions, please call the next regulation.
Thank you.
Justice and Public Safety Cabinet, Department of State Police, 502 KAR 10, 10, 20, 30, 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 110, and 120. There are multiple staff suggested amendments, and 120 has an agency amendment.
All of these regulations amend to make minor updates. Additionally, 502 KAR 10030 amends to update provisions for a driver, trainer, instructor's license. 502 KAR 10035 and 10110 amend to require persons administering the CDL skills test to follow the standards in the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators 2005 CDL Test System Model Examiner's Manual. 10040 amends to require classroom audio-visual equipment that is consistent with modern technology, to delete provisions requiring a 16mm sound movie projector, a 35mm slide projector, or videotape display screen, to decrease the number of hours of classroom instruction available to each student from a minimum of 5 to a minimum of 4, and update various training school requirements. 10070 amends to increase the qualifying age of a driver-instructor vehicle from 5 years to 10 years. It also amends to add provisions for a determination that a vehicle is uncertifiable after inspection, and add procedures to correct identified problems and repeat the inspection, and also update provisions on the school fleet. The staff suggested amendments for 010 through 110 amend various sections to comply with the drafting and formatting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A and to make technical corrections. Additionally, the staff suggested amendment for 10080 amend Section 2 to substitute the term motor vehicle for automobile. The agency amendment for 502 KAR 10120 amends to cite to federal application requirements, amends to allow the fee for a fingerprint-based background check to be paid electronically through a provided URL, update various sections, and comply with the formatting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A.
Good afternoon to both of you today. Would Ma'am, would you please identify yourself, and then, sir, would you do that as well?
Good afternoon. I'm Amber Arnett, Staff Attorney for the State Police.
Good afternoon. I am Captain Marshall Johnson with the Kentucky State Police Driver Testing Branch.
Welcome, Ms. Arnett and Captain Johnson. Thank you for being with us today. There are staff amendments to these set of regulations. Is there a motion for approval? There has been a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. There's also an agency amendment that is attached to one of these regulations. Is there any discussion on that specific agency amendment? There appears to be no discussion, so is there a motion for approval of the agency amendment? There has been a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions on the regulations that's been presented to us? Senator Yates, go right ahead, sir.
Just a simple question. I got a 16-year-old, will be 16 on the 27th, taking her test. Is anything we're doing here today going to make that test harder?
No, sir, not at all.
All right.
Senator Yates, would you like to follow up? Thank you all very much. Thank you, Captain, for your service. We appreciate the Kentucky State Police and both of you and for your work. Very honored that you have come to be with us today and wish you all the very best. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
There are no other questions, so please let's go to the next regulation at this time.
Labor Cabinet, Office of Unemployment Insurance, 787 KAR 1360 Emergency.
787-1360 Emergency amends provisions for overpayment waivers pursuant to House Bill 1 to extend the time period to waive an overpayment of benefits for unemployment insurance.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Would you please both identify yourself for the record at this time?
Good afternoon. I'm Anthony Hudgens. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the Office of Unemployment Insurance.
Good afternoon. Orrin McFarland, Deputy General Counsel, Education, Labor Cabinet.
Thank you, gentlemen, again today for being with us. There are no amendments to this regulation. Are there any questions from members of this committee at this time? There appears to be no questions, so again, thank both of you for being with us today. At this time, please call the next regulation.
Thank you.
Under Department of Workforce Investment, 787 KAR 2040 with staff suggested amendment.
787-2040 amends workforce development area provisions to establish standards for dissemination and implementation of policies and guidance. The staff suggested amendment adds a definition section and amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Good afternoon. Would both of you please identify yourself today for the record?
Honor Barker. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Workforce Development in the Education and Labor Cabinet.
Orrin McFarland, Deputy General Counsel, Education, Labor Cabinet.
Again, welcome to both of you today. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of this staff amendment?
Motion.
There is a motion and there is a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee today? Senator West, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to have a few questions coming up, but if we could set the table a little bit. As with any government agency in the state, things can get a little complicated. So there's different different levels of boards and different with different duties. So could you just briefly describe KWIB and how that works in collaboration with the local workforce development boards and how that all is supposed to work together? Could you describe that, please?
Want me to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have 10 local workforce development area boards in the state.
I had another question. You teed it up for me. So those 10, those go hand in hand with the development districts, correct? Is that the same region or those different regions?
So that's not a simple answer. They do, and they have
those
partners.
geographic areas are pretty much the same.
They are.
Okay.
They are aligned.
Okay.
Some of them are partnered with in specific ways with those ads, and some are not. necessarily, but they all
Leave
fall
it to
in
the
the
state
same
of Kentucky
region.
to make it complicated.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Not an easy answer. But in addition to the local workforce boards, we also have a state workforce board, which is the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, which falls within our cabinet and is charged with responsibility to oversee, in conjunction with our department, the Department of Workforce Development. There's a number of conversations going on right now, in fact, to better delineate those lines and where they cross over. But in a nutshell, we work together to oversee the local areas, provide them with technical assistance, guidance, policies, and that's what this regulation is attempting to put a little more teeth into, or provide some stronger parameters for how that should work.
Okay, so thank you for that. That's good setup. And my question is going to revolve around Senate Bill 207. And I believe Senator Higdon is here to testify after you guys. Did you all consider the effect of this new regulation on Senate Bill 7 and how those two would work together, or was that considered at all when this was drafted?
I would. Want me to take that one? Sure. I would respond that most everything we do at this moment is with that in mind. There have been many conversations about that, and still some uncertainty with the impact and how on various areas and how that's going to go. But that said, I don't know really how much of an impact that would have on this necessarily, or how much consideration was necessarily needed. This is to very simply clarify for the local areas our expectations in terms of which they already know, but it's really for, we have had some audits that have made recommendations to us to do a better job in ensuring that we put certain things out there in a more clear manner. So that's what we're trying to do in a number of ways, and this is one of those ways. And so we are saying this is, ultimately, you have to govern and structure in a way that is in accordance with WIOA minimally, but also in consideration of state policy and guidance, and you're expected to share that appropriately throughout your workforce area, because there are a number of other partners that in each area that perform workforce services.
Thank you. So my next question, and then this will be my final question for this segment, in Section 7, which it's not a long regulation, it's just pretty simple, but where it speaks of guidance and materials issued by the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board in coordination with the governor. Well, let me back up a second. The local Workforce Development Board shall implement and disseminate policies, guidance, and manuals issued by KWIB, Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, in coordination with the governor, and so on and so on. So if we implement this, isn't this giving ultimate veto authority to the governor on the decisions of KWIB and these local boards? I mean, can't the board, if the board decides on something and votes on something, makes a decision, if we implement this, doesn't that give him just veto authority for those decisions?
I don't know the answer to that. I would say that's probably that's certainly more illegal. I would say that the KWIB is a governor's advisory board, so they do ultimately answer to the governor and advise the governor on workforce matters. What we publish, what we issue, and again, KWIB and my department work hand in hand to create, develop, and implement policies and guidance and manuals and provide technical assistance to the local areas. You know, what we do is in accordance with WIOA. By and large, it's rarely, if ever, more restrictive, not in a substantial way. So I don't really know how to answer that.
Sure. I'll chime in if I may.
Sure.
One of the statutory responsibilities from the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act that the KWIB is charged with as the state board is to issue policies. WIOA provides a lot. It's a collaborative statute between the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And as Ms. Barker said, the KWIB advises the governor with regard to various workforce issues throughout the state. I don't see, since the KWIB is responsible for issuing the policies, the coordination language in here is mirroring the purpose of WIOA, to talk with the governor as well as the agency, which then disseminates the information to the local areas. But it's the KWIB statutory charge function to actually issue the policy and the guidance.
Thank you. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Are there any other questions at this time for these two folks? I'm going to ask both of you, if you don't mind, to just step back from the table and have a seat there behind. And we have Senator Higdon that is going to come up and speak against the regulation. So you may be excused from the table at this time. And just wait, and we will bring you back.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Senator Higdon. We welcome you this afternoon, sir, to our subcommittee meeting today. The floor is yours. I understand that you are here to speak against this specific regulation, so you may proceed, and then we may have some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This regulation appears to me to reverse changes made to the Education and Workforce Collaborative that was passed in Senate Bill 207 this year. And one of the basic changes that Senate Bill 207 made, you have the Workforce Investment Board, which is an advisory board. It's a large board that covers the whole state, representatives from the industry. There's a state representative that serves on that board, Representative McCool. I serve on that board as a Senate representative, and like I said, that's an advisory board. But the main work of the of KWEB is done through the collaborative, and currently, and all the workforce development stuff and the I guess the one-stop centers and workforce development, a lot of it is done at the local level, local KWEB boards, and those are in the area development districts. Currently, only the area development districts, they get to nominate one person to represent all 10. What Senate Bill 207 did was put all 10 of those representatives from each of the area development districts on the board. And that's the biggest part of it. There's some other changes too, but it took, I think I took 8 members from the current board and added 10 members to the new board. The current board has 19 members. The board under Senate Bill 207 has 21. Like I said, the majority of those are the 10 area development district representatives.
Are those from the area development districts? Are those the directors of the area development district, or who actually designates who that would be? Well,
the local KWEB board is is contained inside the area development districts. It's a I guess a subdivision of the area development district.
Are there any other questions for Senator Higdon? Senator West, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Senator Higdon, for your presentation. So, just for clarification, so do you personally think that this regulation has some level of conflict with SB 207?
I don't know what the intention of the language is that's in the administrative reg, but, one could, I guess, read from that, that the intention is to not follow Senate Bill 207 and leave the board intact, is the way I read it. That leave the current board intact.
Thank you.
Senator Yates, do you have a question, please?
Yeah, more of a question, I guess. So obviously, if we pass Senate Bill 207 and it's enacted in law, that would supersede any type of administrative regulation, and it would otherwise be preempted in the event there is a conflict determined by law.
Are you asking that to Senator Higdon's?
I think I'm putting it out there. Just
Okay.
I know the answer is yes, but I was just putting it out there for any.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Senator Higdon, if you wouldn't mind, sir, if you'll just kind of step back and I'm going to call the folks back up for just a moment, and I'd like to ask them to respond to what Senator Higdon gave us in his testimony. If either one of you would like to respond to that, I think if you would like to respond, go ahead, and if not, that's okay as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, and I think I understand what he's saying, but with regard to the makeup of the board, this would not it would not impact one way or one another. This regulation is saying that we've always said that you shall do these things, which govern, hire your staff, structure in this way. The specific things that we say in the regulation were there before, and we say that you will do this in accordance with WIOA, which is federal law. So that's just a given. The part that we added in here was about being sure to disseminate that information, abide by the information that the state, that information as well as state policies and manuals, which they do. But it's an additional measure to provide guidance as has been recommended in some audits. So it's really not changing anything. And regardless of what happens with Senate Bill 207 and the collaborative, it isn't going to have an impact on this, and this isn't going to have an impact on that. I don't believe, to my understanding, and I can't imagine why it would. It's in essence just cleanup.
I agree with Ms. Barker. This amendment does not have anything to do with the makeup of the board. It simply says that the board will complete its statutory function under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act to disseminate policies relevant to the local areas, and that those local areas will implement and disseminate them.
Senator West, would you like to ask a question, please?
Yeah, I think it all, if I can see through what Senator Higdon is getting at, I think the big problem revolves around just a couple sentences. And I think the main one is where it says in coordination with the governor. I think what Senator Higdon was looking for in Senate Bill 207 was a little bit more independence for the local boards, where those people who are located in local communities are best able to see what needs are there, address those needs, come up with ideas, and propose those and have those implemented. And so I think that was the ultimate goal of 207. And I think what he's saying is that if you put in a sentence in coordination with the governor, in other words, the governor has ultimate veto authority of whatever you come up with, that could be problematic and take away some of that independence at the local level. So having said that, would you all agree to take a pause for a month and maybe defer this to for a month and talk to the senator to discuss it and work through it?
I don't think it's an emergency that we necessarily yeah, but I mean, again, just to clarify, that language that's not new, and that's federal language that every state abides by, in coordination with the governor, and the state workforce agency. And so those are some of the issues I think that, are gonna need to, be further researched in the
Yeah.
feasibility studies that we will undertake in accordance with that. But we can't go against federal law.
Sure, absolutely. And Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, I would ask the cabinet to agree to defer on this regulation until next month and give them an opportunity to consult with Senator Higdon on these issues.
Before we actually, or before I actually, I guess, officially ask them that, Senator Yates had a question. Ms. Senator Yates, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not jockeying for a position in General Counsel, I promise. I think if we are going to defer, I'd like at least to get some type of judicial determination that would be laid out. Obviously, we're preempted by any type of federal law, so that would be laid out. This entity had always been under the governor's purview before. We passed 207. Any conflict with 207 and administrative regulation would be preempted because our legislation would control. So I think that during this interim, if we would just have a lawyer kind of lay out saying, because I think it's easier when it's just laid out there because we're limited in what we can do. Federal law controls our state law next, then the administrative regs. And so I don't think that we can read into it a veto authority. I don't think we have the ability to do that. So I think by having a legal opinion attached would make it a lot easier for this committee. Thank you.
So deferral at this time is in order with the cabinet.
Yes, we're certainly fine with that.
Okay, thank you very much. But I would just like to add this: Senator Higdon's Senate Bill 207 is really a good bill. I mean, that is a good, solid bill that was passed through both chambers. And in reading your regulation thoroughly this morning, I mean, I really read it really thoroughly. Personally, I think that there appears to be making some significant changes to what Senator Higdon's intention in his bill was. And so I would say I do appreciate the deferral from you this afternoon, and we do appreciate that, and I would like for you to work with Senator Higdon and get together with him. And Senator West, would you like to make another comment?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. I just want to say thank you for agreeing to the deferral and agreeing to work with Senator Higdon on this. And,
of course.
And, it's like Senator Schickel says, the Commonwealth of Kentucky won't collapse in the next 30 days if this doesn't occur. So thank you for meeting with him. Appreciate it.
Sure. We thank both of you for being with us today. Senator Higdon, thank you as well, sir, for being with us today. No further comments or questions on this regulation. At this time, please call the next regulation.
Thank you.
Public Protection Cabinet, Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, 804 KAR 102, 11041 with staff suggested amendments, and 804 KAR 14011.
804-1102 establishes general advertising standards. 804-11041 establishes procedures for retail malt beverage package licensees to sell growlers. 804-14011 establishes procedures for brewing and winemaking for personal use. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Good afternoon, sir. Please identify yourself for the record today.
Hi, I'm Joshua Newton, General Counsel for Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments? There is a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions from any of the members of the subcommittee today? It appears there are no questions, even what a growler is.
We do define it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Please call the next regulation.
Department of Insurance, 806 KAR 9, 380, and 390 with staff suggested amendments.
806 KAR 9380 establishes application procedures and requirements for a self-service storage space insurance producer. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. 806 KAR 9390 establishes licensing requirements for a portable electronics retailer and record-keeping requirements for a licensed portable electronics insurance supervising entity that is responsible for the insurance activities of the portable electronics retailer and its unlicensed employees and representatives. The staff suggested amendment amends the title and also amends to update the edition date for a form and the material incorporated by reference to make corrections to background information questions.
Good afternoon. Would you please both identify yourself today for the record?
You want me to go first?
Go
I'm
ahead.
Abigail Gull. I'm an executive advisor to the commissioner at the Department of Insurance.
And I'm Sean Orm, Executive Advisor to Commissioner of Insurance.
Welcome to both of you today, or welcome both of you to our committee today. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for the approval of the staff amendments? There is a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions? Senator West has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, when she read the summary of KR 9390, my eyes glazed over a little bit. And I had to ask the question. I really don't know what's going on here. So, portable electronic retailer license, are insurance companies, explain to me what that is. I'm sorry.
So, thank you for the question. The simplest way to look at it is if you go buy a cell phone and you get insurance on that cell phone, the person selling you that cell phone, you know, that entity is able to provide insurance on that phone, but that person selling you the cell phone isn't selling you an insurance policy. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Okay, so we're creating a carve-out so those people technically do not have to get a license,
Yeah.
an insurance license.
And it's the same with the self-storage space. You know, if you go get a storage space unit, you want to buy insurance on the contents of that space, but we're not going to.
While you're there.
Correct.
You don't have to go through a separate agent.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions? There appearing to be no other questions. Thank you all for your time today. Please call the next regulations at this time.
Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Office of Inspector General, 900 KAR 5020 Emergency and Ordinary with staff suggested and agency amendments, 900 KAR 6075 Emergency and Ordinary with agency amendments, and 900 KAR 14010 Emergency and Ordinary. The emergency has an agency amendment.
905-020, an emergency is amended to update the title and edition date of the state health plan, update the table of contents and page titles, add language to review criteria that allows hospitals to convert existing level 2 special care neonatal beds to level 3 special care neonatal beds, revise the language of the review criteria to clarify that the addition of a cardiac catheterization program at a hospital shall be based on the existing program's utilization rather than a specific laboratory's utilization, add language to the review criteria to align with the proposed amendment to 900 KAR 6075, and add language to the review criteria to allow acute care hospitals to transfer existing acute care beds to a new hospital under common ownership if the hospitals are located within the same county, the existing hospital's overall rating by the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services Hospital Compare was 3 stars or higher for 3 of the last 4 reported quarters preceding the date the application was filed, and no more than 50% of the existing hospital's acute care beds are transferred to the new facility. The agency amendment amends the material incorporated by reference to make technical changes. 900-6075, an emergency, is amended to grant non-substantive review status to Certificate of Need applications submitted by licensed health facilities seeking to establish a Class 1 ground ambulance service operating at the advanced life support or basic life support level to provide non-emergency transport of individuals who are patients of the licensed health facility or a health facility under common ownership, and the applicant agrees to the placement of restrictions on its proposed Certificate of Need and ground ambulance license and a cross-reference to KRS 216B-095 to emphasize the 35-day statutory time limit to issue a decision on application to sign non-substantive review and require hearing officers to prioritize decisions on non-emergency ground ambulance applications and grant non-substantive review status to Certificate of Need applications for acute care hospitals that wish to transfer existing acute care beds to a new facility under common ownership if the facilities are located within the same county The existing hospital's overall rating by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Hospital Compare was 3 stars or higher for 3 of the last 4 reported quarters preceding the date the application was filed, and no more than 50% of the existing hospital's acute care beds are transferred to the new facility. The agency amendment amends Section 2 to make technical changes.
900 KR 14010 E and O establish guidelines pursuant to Senate Bill 100 from the 2022 regular session for essential personal care visitor programs in assisted living communities, long-term care facilities, and state-owned or operated psychiatric hospitals when general visitation is limited or prohibited. The amended after comments version for the emergency deletes the terms facility onset and outbreak. The amended after comments version for the ordinary makes various changes to comply with KRS Chapter 13A, deletes from Section 1 the terms facility onset and outbreak, and makes changes to align with the agency amendment on 900 KR 14010E adopted on March 7, 2022, that deletes Section 2.6 and Section 3.1A through D. The agency amendment for 900 KR 14010E amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
We'll stand at ease just a moment, please. Sorry about that. Would you both please identify yourself today for the record?
Sure. Adam Mather, Inspector General for the Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
And I'm Kara Daniel, Deputy Inspector General.
Good afternoon to both of you. Welcome to our committee meeting today. There are agency amendments to these regulations that was just presented to us. Is there any discussion on these agency amendments? There appears to be no discussion. Is there a motion for approval? There has been a motion and a second for approval of the agency amendments. Without objection, it is so ordered. I think we have a committee amendment. Senator West has a committee amendment at this time. And let me stop just a second, Senator West. I think we also have someone else joining us today. Sir, would you please identify yourself for the record? I apologize for missing you. I'm sorry.
That is not a problem at all. I'm Ken Marshall. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of U of L Health and can answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marshall. Senator West, go ahead at this time, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it is in order, I would move that we adopt a committee amendment on 900 KAR 005020, both the emergency regulation and the ordinary regulation.
Would you like to explain that, Mr. Chair? Or would you like for
She's going to give
Yes,
staff is
I will
going to give
explain that.
staff is going to give a summary.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
The subcommittee amendment to 900-5020 amends the material incorporated by reference to permit licensure for applicants with prospective plans to provide fixed-site diagnostic cardiac catheterization services.
Does the agency agree to this committee amendment?
We do.
Okay. So if the agency agrees, is there a motion for approval of this committee amendment? There has been a motion. Is there a second? There is a motion and a second for the approval of the committee amendment that the agency has agreed to. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions now on the regulations as amended by this committee amendment and the agency amendment? Senator West, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two quick questions on the reg that I just amended. Why is the emergency reg necessary? Do we know? Go ahead.
So, the state health plan is Can you hear me? The state health
You
plan
might
is,
want to pull that just a little closer and make sure the green light is on, please.
the state health plan is required to be amended annually. And as we all know, the pandemic created a lot of strain and stress on healthcare providers across the state. And we were just in an unprecedented situation. And it was not amended on the usual schedule. And we also did not want to introduce uncertainty by changing the state health plan in the middle of the pandemic. But now that the things are a bit more settled, we wanted to go ahead and get those changes in and get back on schedule. And
I assume we had a state health plan deadline that's approaching, right? That we're trying to get. That's
yes,
okay.
Right.
Second question, if that's okay,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
go right ahead.
In the never-ending saga as it relates to ambulance CON, could you explain these regulations? How does that operate out in the field, like so to speak? How does this affect that CON on the ground as it pertains to ambulance service?
The House Bill 777 now allows for, I think the crux of the issue statewide was.
This is just carrying out 777.
Right, correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
That's
yes.
all I need.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions? There appears to be no further questions, so thank you all this afternoon for your
Thank
time.
you.
Please call the next regulation.
Department for Public Health, 902 KAR 2020 emergency, 902 KAR 20016 and 106, pardon me.
902 KAR 2020E amends to remove the requirement for healthcare facilities to submit COVID-19 antigen test results and antibody test results, add a requirement to report positive test results for COVID-19 viral detection using antigen immunoassays, and allow submission of case reporting through the Kentucky Health Information Exchange.
902 KR 20016 amends to require policies that assure that retaliatory action is not taken against a staff member who in good faith reports a patient care or safety problem. Require that if a patient is admitted by a certified nurse midwife, the patient remain under the care for all services within that scope of practice. Add requirements for surgical smoke safety and control to comply with Senate Bill 38 from the 2021 regular session, and delete language that is no longer needed related to ambulatory care clinics owned and operated by a Kentucky licensed hospital. The amended after comments version modifies the reference to following the requirements of KRS 216B165 and changes language related to outpatient clinic and ambulatory care clinic.
902 KAR 2106 and 906 KAR 1110 both amend to require a health facility that utilizes energy-generating devices to use a smoke evacuation system during any surgical procedure that is likely to produce surgical smoke in accordance with Senate Bill 38 from the 2021 legislative session, and to update provisions and make technical changes. Additionally, 906 KAR 1110 amends to delete the requirement that a certified registered nurse anesthetist be supervised by the operating surgeon while administering anesthetics to align with Kentucky's opt-out status.
Good afternoon, ladies. Would you both please identify yourself today for the record?
I'm Carol Rush. I'm the Reportable Diseases Section Manager in the Division of Epidemiology and Health Planning.
And I'm Julie Brooks. I'm the Regulations Coordinator for the Department for Public Health.
Thank you both today for being with us. As the co-chair of this committee from the House side, almost every month I get a lot of emails and comments regarding generally a regulation or two that's on the agenda for that month. And I can say to both of you, I have received an enormous amount of comments and emails from people concerning this set of regulations. As I met with staff this morning, actually, they had to keep getting me straightened out because I kept confusing 106 and 016 with the numbers there, but finally got all those straight. But there are no amendments on these regulations. Would you ladies anything you'd like to add or like to say?
No, I will just say if there are any questions about the 20016 2106, those are not actually Department of Public Health regulations, so I would not be able to answer those questions.
I understand that.
So.
We do have two other people that signed up. Are those folks here? Donna, would you like to speak? Please come to the table, please, at this time. And Dolores Polito, am I saying that correct? Is she? Okay. Yes, please, ladies, come to the table.
Do you want to go first, Victor?
For the record, I would ask for both of you to identify yourself for the record today.
Sure, certainly. My name is Donna Piachetti. I'm a certified registered nurse anesthetist, and I'm here today on behalf of our Kentucky Association of Nurse Anesthetists.
And I'm Dee Polito. I am a certified nurse midwife, and I'm representing the Kentucky affiliate of the American College of Nurse Midwives, as well as the Kentucky Association of Nurse Practitioners and Nurse Midwives.
I will allow either of you or both of you, if you would like to make some comments, go right ahead, please.
Okay, well, we're today speaking on two different issues, but I'll go ahead.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yep.
And tell us which issue you're speaking on
Okay,
specifically.
I'm speaking specifically to the 902 KAR 2106.
Okay.
Okay.
You may proceed.
Yep. And I just wanted to let everybody know that the KYANA, which is the Kentucky Association of Nurse Anesthetists, fully supports the Cabinet of Health and Family Services and the Office of the Inspector General for promulgating the regulations related to surgical smoke evacuation. Our job duties require us to be in our operating rooms for several hours a day on a daily basis. So we really appreciate that the health and welfare of all healthcare providers that work in operating room environments is a priority across the state. So we'd like to thank the Cabinet for that. We also fully support that the Cabinet of Health and Family Services for deleting the requirement for a certified registered nurse anesthetist to administer anesthetics under the direction of operating surgeons. By removing this language, in the proposed amendment, 902 KAR 2106, it simply aligns the regulation with current statute and other regulations that have been in place for many years. Of importance, the exact line was removed in the hospital services regulation back in 2018. Lastly, we do applaud the Cabinet of Health and Family Services for making these changes to 902 KAR 2106, as we feel it makes it very clear our roles as certified registered nurse anesthetists in providing anesthesia services in ambulatory surgery centers throughout the Commonwealth, which is a big benefit for all Kentuckians. Thank you.
Representative Marzian, would you like for the other lady to go ahead, or would you like
I
to
just
ask
want to recognize Senator Julie Rocky Adams, who is here.
Yes, go ahead.
Who passed the bill about smoke in the ORs, and I want to thank you all. I've been put to sleep twice by CRNAs, and have done a great job. But thank you all for being here. But I wanted just to comment about Senator Julie Rocky Adams.
Thank you, Representative Marzian.
Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
And I'm just here in support of the Kentucky Hospital Association's recommendation to amend the language in Section 4 of 902 KAR 20016 in allowing certified nurse midwives direct admitting privileges to hospitals.
Well, thank you, ladies, for your time today, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
And also, to add to what Representative Marzian said, we certainly commend Senator Adams for her passage of that bill unanimously. Yes, yes. Are there any other questions for? Are there any questions for either of these ladies or for either of the ladies from the Cabinet? There appears to be no questions. So thank you all of you today for being with us. We appreciate your time. Good regulation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Glad to see it move forward. Please call the next regulation at this time.
Office of Inspector General, 906 KAR 1110. No, we haven't done the 906 yet.
Sorry about that. 906 KAR 1110 amends to also require a health facility that utilizes energy generating devices to use a smoke evacuation system during any surgical procedure in accordance with Senate Bill 38. And it amends to delete the requirement that a certified registered nurse anesthetist be supervised, which I think we were talking about it on the last set of regs.
I know you've both been before us, but you please still need to identify yourself again.
Sure. Adam Mather, Inspector General for the Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
Kara Daniel, Deputy Inspector General.
There are no amendments. Are there questions from any of the members? There are no questions, so thank you all for your time today. Please call the next regulation.
Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities, 908 KAR 3010 with staff suggested amendment.
908 KAR 3010 amends to incorporate the provisions of Senate Bill 100 from the 2022 regular session for essential personal care visitor programs. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Would you please identify yourself for the record today?
My name is Rachel Ratliff, and I'm the Regulation Coordinator for the Department of Behavioral Health.
Welcome, Ms. Ratliff, to our subcommittee meeting today. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval? There is a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Are there any questions for Ms. Ratliff today? There are no questions, so thank you, Ms. Ratliff, for your time today.
Thank you.
There being no further questions, I think that's the end of the meeting today. I will have them announce to us at this time when the next regulation meeting will be held.
We are back to our second Tuesday of the month, which is August the 9th at 1 p.m.
August the 9th at 1 p.m. will be our next meeting. I would like to say to all the committee members, thank you for your time being here, and all of those that were with us today. A good meeting, hour and 15 minutes. We are adjourned.